Hello everyone, I've been getting a lot of emails due to the fact about Boeing and AOG, about Boeing fudging documentation, about AOG fudging documentation, about FAIZER and Johnson & Johnson, what a mess. And these, other than AOG, you have FAIZER, Johnson & Johnson, Boeing, Lockheed, FAA, DOT, FBI, all sitting on ANSI's board. PFIZER skips quality processes and standards to put the COVID vaccine out. You have Boeing who fudged quality procedures and all the rest of that fudged documentation, no less. And you have Kobe Steel that supplied materials to Boeing. They don't sit on ANSI, but nevertheless, it seems like everybody, Kobe Steel is accredited by several of them. One in particular was UKAS out of England. My feeling is that AOG Technics, who made all these parts for the aerospace industry, my feeling still is probably 8,000 jets involved because a CFM56 engine, I think it probably migrated to other engines as well, but the CFM56 is made by a combo of Sarafin out of France and GE. They combined and made that consortium of CFM. Anyway, we want to get through this. We don't want it to be 20 minutes long, but this video today is about how the FAA seceded safety oversight to Boeing. Quality expert Daryl Guberman says collusion. Not only collusion, but you have interlocking directorates because all these people sit on each other's boards, smoking cigars and taking names and champagne or what have you and playing golf. In 2013, I gave a speech at the American Society for Quality. There was a gentleman there, a Mr. David Levy, Region 3 Director of the ASQ, American Society for Quality, which also sits on ANSI. At the time, ASQ owned ANAB, the American National Crediting Board, 50%. ANSI, the American National Standard Institute, owned ANAB 50%. Mr. David Levy said, and I quote, and I have it on on audio and video. Dave Levy said, "There is no restriction on you doing business unaccredited or accredited. And as I said before, ANAB has no problem with what you are doing. In fact, we support you, sir." Yet they sent their henchmen after me in 2012 to try to sue me, and I won that battle. And in fact, Randy, who you're going to most recently see, because he sent us a letter, Randy Doherty, in 2016, inviting us to join either ANAB or IAF or both. But we were smart enough to say no, because you're going to find out that Randy handed over leadership of the International Accreditation Forum in Delaware, which is a repository for both national and international accreditation bodies. National is like ANSI-ANAB, but you'll find out also in other videos that ANSI-ANAB have over 10 different registrars that are Chinese in China issuing an ANAB accreditation. But David said, no problem, we have no problem with you, Mr. Guberman, but I didn't need their approval because I believe in independence. Independence is what made this country what it is today. Can I say that? I'm sorry. What it was, okay? I wish it was what it was, but it's not. Anyway, as we all know watching the news. Anyway, in 2016, Randy Doherty, who at the time was the technical advisor of ANAB, and he was the principal on the IAF tax report, even though he was not the chairman at the time, it was left to the Chinese national. You'll see that soon. He invited us to join either ANSI-ANAB or IAF. He said they had no problem with us, come on board, but I, as a good businessman, could not, and a proud American, first off, I could not join because of their nefarious activities they were dealing with China since 1994, ANSI and ANAB, and you'll see this. ANSI, the American National Standards Institute, is a private, not-for-profit, non-governmental company. It's been around for 104 plus years, and it's both has federal agencies and corporations on board. This is why I didn't take Randy up on this 2016 invitation, because in 2000, let me get my little pointer here, 2015, Randy Doherty, then the Vice President of ANAB, Chairman of the IAF, you know about ANAB, American National Crediting Board, and also the IAF, the International Accreditation Forum. He was also the principal in the 990 IAF Tax Forum. He handed over leadership to this Chinese gentleman, Zhao Jinwu, who's been involved with our quality since 1994. He, at the time, was also the chairman, actually the chief executive of the China National Accreditation Services out of Beijing, China, and he was also the IAF chairman. You'll see him in here shortly. I think we have a picture of him, maybe not, but he was standing in Wuhan, China in 2017, issuing a certification for a laboratory for the BioLevel 4 lab that was in the news about releasing the COVID virus. Ms. Pamela Sales, at the same time in 2017, was giving a deposition down in Texas. And she said under deposition that from one laboratory to another, whether it's forensic, and I'm going to add these, she did not say this. She said forensic labs, but you have to add phlebotomy labs and BioLevel 4 labs. There is no protocols. It's an ad hoc type of inspection, and they're still issuing certifications. There was a gentleman in 2011 who gave a report to the state of New York about laboratory failure. And he said that, Mr. Adam Schechter, he said that ASCLD Lab, which is owned by ANSI-ANAB. Pamela Sale, of course, is the accrediting guru of that, of all the laboratories. She's the VP. ASCLD is no more than getting a badge of honor. Zhao Jinwu was mandated by his country of origin to take data through the China National Intelligence Law, Article number 7. You also have the factor that IAF and ILAC are sister organizations. Also a factor that ANSI and ANAB are underwriters for these two organizations. That means they take full legal responsibility. ANSI took over complete control over ANAB in 2018. At the time that Zhao Jinwu controlled this mess, you had ANSI and ANAB sitting on the IAF, ANSI having all those federal agencies that got hacked. Many of them during that time period, 2015 to 2021, got hacked by no other than China. But can we say it's hacked? Because you have the Chinese national who, unbelievable. In fact, in 2017 is a big year because Randy Doherty was being advertised on the Department of Homeland Security's website. That's like having a Walmart being advertised on the FBI. That's like having GE Capital being advertised on the Department of Homeland Security. Private companies are not really involved, or should be, advertised on federal agency websites. As I told you, ANSI-ANAB are underwriters. If you look this up, we have many others, but if you look this up, this is Department of State, and they say on the contract, and I have it right here, they say that ANSI-ANAB are underwriters for the IAF. But if you look at the date, 2018, Zhao Jinwu was still the principal over that IAF. He was the chairman. And remember, he's ordered and mandated to take data through the China National Intelligence Law, Article number 7. So the Department of State was hugging and kissing Zhao Jinwu at the time, I am sure. And here's the actual report showing you about the IAF, that ANAB is an underwriter for the International Accreditation Forum. So I'm not making this mess up. They are legally responsible. Not only that, Randy sent us an email that said an IAF MLA, which is a multilateral agreement, and an MRA, which is a multi-regional agreement organization, is equivalent in accreditation to ANAB. So if you do the China National Accreditation Services, has a ISO or AS9100, it's as if ANSI-ANAB dispensed that. So they take all legal responsibility for that certification if something major happens, like AOG. My feeling is AOG Technics was accredited by UKAS. I can't put my finger on it because they took the website down, the accreditation down, the certificate. But in England, since that's where AOG resided, my feeling is they were certified by UKAS. I would imagine. An underwriter, I'm not going to read this. I'm going to hold it there a second. Now we're going to get on to Boeing, where we hit upon how the FAA seceded inspection to Boeing. Boeing sits on ANSI's board. Okay? Boeing sits on ANSI's board. In 2002, Boeing basically said in their little tiny procurement issued form to their suppliers and subcontractors that if you are basically AS9100 certified, that's AEROSPACE ISO certificate, If you are certified to that, your quality is great, it's stellar, we don't have to send any more inspectors in. So they've been doing that since 2002 for 21 years. To top it all off, in 2009, the FAA came in and did the magic dispensation and certified some of the guys and gals who were working at Boeing. So basically they were self-inspecting for the FAA. Unbelievable. So, sitting on ANAB's board at the time, up to 2021, was Boeing. Boeing sat on the board of directors, which had direct line. They had they able to add their piece of 2 cents in for changes and all that because they were part of the board of directors. They also sat on the Management System Accreditation Council, which can grant, suspend, and withdraw certification. They had a lot of power there. Did they grant it? Maybe. Did they suspend it? No. Did they withdraw it? No. Why? The FAA says, go ahead and inspect your own stuff. On Boeing Supplier Portal, which still exists, I took snapshots of it, I've got it. Up to this date, it still says the same thing. The supplier, subcontractor, whatever, must be ANSI-ANAB or internationally equivalent. The internationally equivalent, since it's an MLA as well, would be Iran and Pakistan, for example. And I'm not saying this about the people of Iran or Pakistan, but the politicians who admitted to harboring some of the terrorists of 9/11, and of course Pakistan, who harbored Osama bin Laden. What makes AOG Technics fudging documentation so much like Lockheed, the original equipment manufacturer who utilizes those engines with the fudged parts in it? They faked their documentation too. They fudged it, okay? They fudged it, and here it is. Can you imagine that? Who sits there? The FAA. The funniest thing, though, is Randy, when he was vice president of ANAB, chairman of the IAF, and also on the principal in the IAF tax report, which he had full command of that. He said, this is what he said, under what regulated authority does ANAB operate? He said, we are not operating under any governmental regulatory authority with the exception of being a legal entity. And I'm going to show you how much of a liar he is. And this is how they get around that. They tell you that, we are not operating under any governmental regulatory authority with the exception of being a legal entity. Well, who sits on there? NIST on ANSI's board. But the thing about it is, you have this gentleman, Gordon Gillerman, who's getting compensated, not only his federal salary, but he's also getting compensated from ANSI. So here you have the in with the Remember what Randy said. Randy said, we are not operating under any governmental regulatory authority with the exception of being a legal entity. Well, I think he's full of shit. Hold on, it gets better. Remember, also the NVLP, which is the National Voluntary Lab Accreditation Program, which certified the Dominion voting machines. And at the time they certified it, they were being watched over and controlled by Communist China because NIST sits on ANSI's board. You have the factor of NIST SB 800 CMMI for cybersecurity. And because NIST is so much involved with ANSI-ANAB at the time, those certifications for cybersecurity are not good. You also have the factor with NIST that they have the NIST MEP, the Manufacturing Extension Partnership, which is 50 strong throughout the states. If you really want to know why manufacturing sucks in America and has sucked for decades, well, I'll tell you why. The MEP takes both federal funds in and also state funds and disperses them. And 65% of them go to pay their management and personnel, and the better dregs, the bitter dregs are left for the manufacturers. Here's another in with the government. You have Homeland Security. Yes, Department of Homeland Security sits on ANSI during 2015 and 2021, and they too also got the information taken. But this is a fascinating part and piece. In 2017, Randy was being advertised And I think I'm going to put the actual video we did in showing you the placards of Randy being advertised as a technical, at the time, vice president of ANAB for a certain specialized certification that only ANAB was offering, and they advertised a private company on a federal agency. So when he says, and I will repeat this again, when he says in an email to me, and here it is, when he says in an email, as a vice president of ANAB and also the chairman and the principal on the IF tax firm, when he says we are not operating under any governmental regulatory authority except being a legal entity, he's full of shit. Because now you have this gentleman here, Phil Masterson, DHS, okay? And by the way, at that time in 2017, remember Zhao Jinwu, who's mandated by his country of origin, Communist China, take your data through China National Intelligence Law. Article number 7 was sitting there while Randy was sitting on the DHS, and during that time, the DHS got hacked. This guy, Phil Masterson, $262,000 he makes, tax-free. Nobody has said anything else, plus his federal salary, our tax money. You have the SAE, the Society of Automotive Engineers. Believe it or not, they handle all the aerospace quality stuff. Federal Trade Commission, you can't talk to these people. They're useless. Department of Transportation sits there. Isn't that nice? Department of Defense, who signed off a waiver in 2012-13 under the Obama administration, giving China access to specialized magnets used on the F-35. And guess what? In 2023, somebody came out and said, do you know that there's parts on the F-35? I'd like to know whose palm got greased in 2012 and 13 to give that type of important, whether it's a magnet or something else, our major aerospace program to China. There's companies out there. One of our customers, as a matter of fact, manufactures magnets. And you know something? He told me. He says he put it in. You know what he got back? You're too expensive. So somebody must have got their hands greased back in 2012 and 13. Then you have the FBI. FBI with Christopher Wray. In November of 2022, Christopher Wray said, and I quote, "We must maintain vigilance over China, and TikTok is a detriment because it's run by the Chinese." Well, Chris, it's a terrible thing to say this, but you've been watched over by China between 2015 and 2021. There goes another guy. Every time he talks to Congress, I listen to him and I have to turn the channel. Then you have the IAQG, the International Aerospace Quality Group that Lockheed Martin was a member of when China was watching over the IAF. Yes. And Lockheed was an associate member because of the IAQG, which meant they can vote on policy and principle. Well, guess what? What did they do with Iran? They kept them there. Iran and Pakistan, okay, who confessed, the politicians did, about harboring the terrorists of 9/11, harboring Osama bin Laden, yet Lockheed Martin had the ability to be able to put their 2 cents in as an associate member along with IAQG, and they kept quiet. Department of Justice. And I'm going to leave it there. I think business owners, you've gotten enough of this, and you're probably saying, there goes another video that's 20 minutes long. But this has happened. This is no easy task. It's taken a long time to metastasize, and I have to get it into your head because you know what? They use so many different acronyms. You're so confused. Most businessmen that I have approached in the 12 years of business, and by the way, let me introduce myself. My name is Daryl Guberman. I am the CEO of Guberman PMC LLC, a quality consulting firm here in Connecticut. And it seems like I'm the only one who's doing the siren song of this issue. And I'm not saying that sky is falling either. Well, when your plane goes down, maybe the sky is falling. But, you know, most people will say, well, Daryl, there has not been a plane accident in a long time. That doesn't matter. The whole function about quality control is to prepare and to inspect so that that never happens. Statistically, never happens. Or 1 in 1,000, 1 in 10,000. You want to be on top of the situation. You want to ensure that no fudged parts go and get migrated into the construction of the airplane, the telephone, the car, the radio, anything. You don't want it to migrate into medical, into automotive, into electronics, into all of these industries. You don't want that. I'm going to leave it here. If you have any questions, please contact me. This is about how the FAA seceded inspection to Boeing, collusion, and interlocking directorates. I do this because I believe in quality. These guys believe in their champagne, their cigar, and they don't care about human life. We saw that with PFIZER and the leader of PFIZER, the veterinarian, Albert Bourla, who had vaccine hesitancy. And we have that. We'd gladly send you the video of Albert Bourla, and he never took the vaccine until he was forced into it. He said, I'm a 59-year-old man. I don't need to take it. I don't need to go on. I can go on and do an hour seminar, but I think you've seen enough, heard enough, and I'll leave it there. 203-556-1493 or Daryl, Daryl, TQRS @yahoo.com. I thank you so much. I'm sorry, very sorry for the length of this video.